just as proud and happy to be down here with all you fine folks, and handsome fellers, too. Now, they are. Sure enough. I've been looking at 'em. I just look. It don't do no good, but I still look. It's kind of like going down to the depot and watching the trains go by. You love to hear the whistle even if you ain't going nowhere. But I did have two nice-looking fellers kind of look at me tonight as I was walking in out there. There was two of the handsomest fellers standing there, and I looked over at them and smiled, and they looked over at me and laughed out loud. One of them said to the other, he said, "I believe that's the ugliest woman I ever seen in my life." The other one said, "Yes, she's awful ugly, but she might be a pretty good old girl. You know, beauty's only skin deep." And the other one said, "Well, let's skin her." See, I can't help the way I look. When they passed around looks, I thought they said books, and I said, "Give me a funny one." Well, so this other feller, he says to me, he says, "Now, I believe I recognize that girl." Said, "That's that Minnie Pearl." Said, "She's been down there at the Grand Ole Opry for 175 and a half years. He said, "She carries on like she's from the country." He said, "I bet she ain't from the country." He said, "I bet she don't know a goose from a gander." I turned around, I said, "Well, at Grinder's Switch, we don't worry about that. We just put them all out there together and let them figure it out for themselves." Oh, so far we ain't had no complaints, hardly at all, you might say. Well, said old my feller, he had a fit about me coming off over here. You know, he gets worried about me when I leave Grinder's Switch and come over here to Nashville. He does. He worries. He said, "One of these nights, you'll get over there around that Grand Ole Opry, and one of them fellas over there will run off with you." I wish they would. I just said that 'cause it's so. No, he said last night he come by the house. And, oh, you know, it is so romantical. It is late. It's about 8:30, I reckon. And we was sitting there on the double settee in the front room, and I was sitting by him, and him by me, and one by each, and each by the other. We was just sitting there. Oh, it is romantical, except for one thing. We got a great big old tall grandfather clock. Stands away tall against the wall, and it ticks slow. Every time my fella comes over there to keep me company, sound like that old clock saying, "Take your time, take your time." I ought to get one of them fast ticking little clocks that goes, "Get together, get together, get together." Ain't this awful grown girl of 18 up here carrying on so silly? He said, "What would you do?" We were sitting there just looking at one another, just like two frogs under a collard leaf and it a-raining. He said, "What would you do if you was to get off up there around where all them handsome fellers are up there in the city and run up on a bunch of one of them fast fellers, them city-broke fellers, that'd just kiss you at the drop of a hat? What would you do?" I said, "I reckon I'd be all time dropping my hat." I ain't had no trouble yet. I'm still a-hoping. Law, I ain't been kissed in so long. I forgot whether it's done but drawing in your breath or blowing it out. That's right now, sure enough. They say kissing spreads germs. I sure have spent a lot of healthy evenings in my life. We had a party the other night at Grinder's Switch, where I live at, and right in the middle of it, they started playing a game where they drawed a circle in the middle of the floor, and a girl would stand in the middle of the circle, and a fella would either have to kiss her or pay a fine. I made $11.34. One old boy didn't have no money with him, said he'd pay me come Saturday. But I'd like to take you all with me to Grinder's Switch sometime. Now, I've been talking about Grinder's Switch for now on to 20 years up here at the Grand Ole Opry, and there's several folks have asked me about Grinder's Switch, and I'd just love to take you with me. We've got more going on down there than you ever seen. River runs every day, train runs once a week. Everything going on down there, it's exciting. Now, last week, Chief Jones got one of them newfangled oil stoves, and that thing blowed Chief and his old lady clean out the top of the roof. First time they've been out together since they got married. He ain't like Lem Perkins. He takes his wife with him everywhere he goes. I said to him one day, I said, "Lem, you thought you take your wife with you everywhere you go. He said, yeah, she's so ugly, I'd rather take her with me than to kiss her goodbye. Well, so you know, a lot of folks have asked me about my hometown of Grinders Switch. And I do love to talk about it now. I really do. Because Grinders Switch is a wonderful place to go. And I'd love to show you where it is, but I'll have to take you with me. Of course, you'll know it when you see it. It's got a sign up there that says, welcome and goodbye to Grinders Switch. I wished we'd have had room enough to put up 2 signs. It'd have looked a whole lot better. But we've got a whole lot of fine folks there, at least 50 or 75. And you know what? We've got a brand new fire engine. It's red. We're so proud of it. We did have a bucket brigade. Uncle Nabob was head of the bucket brigade. In fact, he's the biggest buckethead ever come out of Grinders Switch, I reckon. But you know what? We've got the finest fire engine, and it's got a sign up in front of it that says, may this fire engine be like all the old maids at Grinders Switch, always ready and never called for. Yes, sir. We got a fine fire department there, too. Yes, sir. You know, Lem Perkins' house caught on fire the other day, and ordinarily it would have burned out by noon. But that fire department managed to keep it burning all day long. Oh, it's fine fire department. Miss Lizzie Tinkham, she's old maid up at Grinders Switch. She called up the fire department the other night, and she said, send the fire department, send the fire department. There's a man trying to get in my upstairs window. And the fellow down at the fire department said, Miss Lizzie, you don't need the fire department. You need the police department. She said, no, I want the fire department. He needs a longer ladder. Miss Lizzie's the one said she went around to the parson and was telling him how she wanted her funeral arranged. And she told him all about how she wanted the funeral arranged. And then she said, and the mainest thing I don't want nothing but women pallbearers. And the parson said, well, now, Miss Lizzie, that's an odd request. Said, why do you want just women pallbearers? She said, well, if them old men won't take me out while I'm alive, I don't want them taking me out after I'm dead. But you know, we've got a lot of little young'uns around Grinders Switch. Now, you take Ms. Orson Tugwell. Ms. Orson Tugwell has had 16 children altogether. Well, not all together either. She had them 2 or 3 at a time. But she's got a fine raft of young'uns. Boy, you see them little young'uns out there, all of them out playing in the yard, looks like school recess. I never seen them beat. Well, Ms. Orson Tugwell has had so many young'uns, she's run out of names to call Orson. But we always get a real bang out of Ms. Orson Tugwell and her little old young'uns. There's the littlest one. He's the finest little old fella you ever seen in your life. Now, he's so bad, if you was to throw him in the water, he'd float upstream. I'm sure of that. One day she left him with me, and she said, now, the best way to calm him down is to just brush his hair. Just brush his hair with a brush. Well, I found out how to handle him with the brush. I didn't use the brush on his head. I used the opposite side of the brush on the opposite side of the young'un. I got him. Uncle Nabob said young'uns are just like boats. They do better if paddled. That's right, too. But you know what? She had this little old boy, one of her little young'uns was out playing in the pasture back during maneuvers, back during World War II, and there was some paratroopers training over here at Fort Campbell, and they had one of them maneuvers, and they dropped, some of the boys began dropping over there in the pasture with them parachutes on, and that little Orson Tugwell young'un hadn't never saw nothing like that before, and he seen them fellers begin falling out there in the pasture, and he run in the house, and he says, oh, Papa, come look quick. The Starks done took to dropping them full growed. Oh, me. But we have had a lot of other things happen at Grinders Switch. Now, just recently, Miss Fanny Boggs, she's done had her face lifted. I've been thinking about that myself. I declare, she kind of went to extremes, though. She tries awful hard to be young. She's dieted. Ooh, she has done dieted till her bones look like they're fixing to kick off the covers. I never seen that. She got an old dog, took her out in the backyard and buried her 3 times. Thought she's just a bone, you know. And she had her face lifted. She went to one of them plastered surgeons and had her face lifted, and they overdone it. I'm telling you the truth. She's pitiful. They've lifted her face to where now every time she sneezes, she blows her hat off. She wouldn't dare get caught out in the rain. That'd just be all of Miss Fanny. I'll tell you right now, it'd be too bad. But we do have a big time up there at Grinder's Switch, and a lot of things now. I'll tell you, there's a whole lot of folks, talk about the newspaper, the Grinder's Switch Gazette. Well, the folks at Grinder's Switch, they don't read the newspaper to find out who's doing what. They just read the newspaper to find out if they got caught at it. Bye now. Well, sir, I had the most exciting experience I ever had in my life last week. I went to a wedding. It wasn't mine, it was some feller's else's. I wished it had been mine. That's one wedding I'd sure like to get an invite to. But I went to that wedding, and I wish y'all could have went with me. Oh, they had flowers. They had Christmas anthems and nasturtiums and petunias and begonias. I never seen the beat all around. And they had a lady playing the organ. She was playing Meddlesome's Wedding March. Oh, I just cried and cried. Had the best time. And the bride, she come down the aisle, and she had on a white dress and white mosquito netting up and down the front of her face. I didn't see why they didn't just spray her with DDT. Her dress was awful pretty in the front, but it sagged something awful down the back. Two little young'uns had to come behind and tote it for her. She just come on in there like there wasn't nothing wrong with the hem of her dress. Seemed like somebody to notice that before she got in there. It embarrassed me. And if she'd have had to get away from there in a hurry with that long dress swinging out behind her, she'd have fell, broke a leg, they'd have had to shoot her. But she'd come on in there, and the groom, he was waiting for her at the halter. Well, that's what it was. It took him a little time to find it out, but that's what it was. And they said the bride looked stunning. Well, the groom just looked stunned. He looked like another clean-shirted dun. One more, be all he need. I felt sorry for him. He is out of his mind, bound to have been. He never would have said what he did. He told that girl right there in front of all them folks that he'd give her all the worldly goods he had. He did. I heard him. He said he'd give her all his worldly goods. As Pappy was sitting by me, he said, uh-oh, there goes Jed's slingshot. And coming on home from that wedding was the closest that my feller ever come to proposing to me. I just tell you, it is just the most exciting thing. We was coming by the graveyard, and that there's where it like to happen, right there. We come by the graveyard, and we was coming along with a horse and buggy, see? And we come by the graveyard, and my feller Hezzy, he pulled up that old horse, and we stopped there in front of that graveyard, and he looked over at the graveyard, and then he looked over at me, and he said, Minnie Pearl. That there's my name's Minnie Pearl. That is why he called me that. He said, well, it was. I reckon it's the only reason I know. He said, Minnie Pearl, he said, all my kinfolks for years back, everybody ever been kin to me, and I reckon ever will be, has been buried over in that graveyard. I hope someday to see you buried over there, too. Well, I didn't know what to say, him proposing to me like that. And then when he kissed me, and the way he kissed me, he started to tell the horse to get up, and just as he started to tell the horse to get up, he went like this, and I got in the way. He kissed me all right. I thought every hair on my head was a harp, and somebody's playing a different tune on every one of them. I've been in several weddings myself. I've been a bridesmaid. Oh, I love to be in them. I just love a wedding. The last one I was in, though, I had a little trouble about my dress. I was aiming to wear a real pretty dress. Aunt Ambrosie and Mammy was cutting it out for me, and they had the fine pattern that we've used several times for my dresses. And this one was going to have a V-neck, and Aunt Ambrosie had on a new pair of spectacles, and they give her double vision. And when she cut it out, instead of it being a V-neck, it come out a W. Well, I couldn't use that dress. I just had to get another one, you know? Aunt Ambrosia's a fine lady. She's Uncle Nabob's wife, and Uncle Nabob's one of my favorite uncles of all. He's the finest old feller. I'd love to have brung him up here with me. I would have loved for y'all to have saw him. But every time I take him somewhere, he just mortifies me to death. A little while ago, I took him up to New York with me. I had to do a show up there, and he embarrassed me so. He never had rode an elevator. And we got in that little cage, and they jammed the door shut, and we just shot right straight up, about 15 or 16 wagon greasings. Got to the top, and fella run the elevator, turned around and seen Uncle Nabob look kind of pale. He said, "What's the matter, Pop? Did it scare you?" Uncle Nabob said, "No, I always wear my pants down around my ankles this way." Day or two after that, I had a little more trouble with him. I went in one of them great big department stores, and I lost Uncle Nabob. Couldn't find him nowhere. And I found him finally. He was trying to go up on a down escalator. I said, "Uncle Nabob, what in the world are you trying to do, trying to go up on a down escalator?" He said, "Leave me alone, gal. Can't you see I'm a gaining on it?"